Welcome to Iron Will. This channel exists for one reason: to teach you how to stand back up when the world tries to knock you down. We don't sell quick fixes or feel-good slogans. We teach discipline, repair, and relentless return, the quiet work done in the small hours. If you're ready to stop avoiding discomfort and start using effort as proof, then this is where you begin. Let's go. There was once a boy named Daniel. From the outside, he looked ordinary, thin, soft-spoken, the kind of kid teachers forgot to call on. At school, the marks came back red. Tests seemed written in a language he couldn't yet decode. Classmates called him slow, and family. Dinners carried that same low, polite disappointment. Labels stuck to him the way mud sticks to boots: average, not that bright, not someone to bet on. For a while, he accepted the story. If it was easier. But underneath the easy story was a small, stubborn thought: what if I didn't have to be what they said? What if the verdict on his life was not final, but a starting point? He began to treat that thought like a quiet command. Not dramatic vows, just a simple rule he could keep when he was tired. Show up, read one page, try one problem, correct one mistake. He started in the margins. While other boys played, Daniel sat with battered textbooks under dim lamps. He read slowly, chewing each sentence until it made sense. The first nights, he understood almost nothing, and that only made him work the next day. He made a notebook that looked like a map of failure. Wrong answers circled in red, corrections written in blue. Tiny notes about what confused him and why. People mocked the notebook. He kept writing. Failure became his teacher. On months when he expected sudden change and found none, he doubled down on the boring things: vocabulary lists, repeated math drills, practicing until his hand cramped. He learned to love the small proof, a solved problem, a paragraph understood, because those were the deposits that built confidence. He learned to lower the bar of entry so his future, tired self could always take the first step: one page, one paragraph, one problem. Not everything went up. He failed public exams, flunked a subject, and felt the sting of humiliation. There were nights he cried into his pillow because effort didn't keep pace with expectation. But he refused to let a single collapse define him. Each setback was entered into the notebook not as shame, but as data: what failed, when, how, and what to try next. Over time, the notebook stopped being a confession and became a ledger of progress. A turning point came not with fireworks, but with a slow, steady rising. Tests no longer ended in abject failure. They became pauses. Pauses became B's. B's edged into A's on an exam here and there. People began to murmur. The same teacher who once told him some kids weren't cut out for studying paused in the corridor one morning and said, quietly, "You've changed." Daniel's answer was simple. He had changed his habits, not his talent. He had learned a muscle called return. When his name finally appeared near the top of the final results, the room held its breath. The boys who had laughed were quiet. The parents who had worried leaned in. For Daniel, it was not triumph so much as a confirmation. Small, consistent actions led to big, undeniable shifts. He hadn't out-geniused anyone. He had outworked the obstacle of belief. What did he do differently? There are three things that anyone can copy. First, he established tiny, repeatable habits. He set a daily minimum that could not be argued away: one paragraph, one proof problem, 15 minutes of reading. The minimum removed heroics and created fidelity. Second, he logged outcomes. His notebook recorded what worked and what didn't. When a technique failed, he adjusted and tested again. Third, he found one mentor, not someone who cheered, but someone who corrected. A teacher eventually began to give him brutal, useful feedback instead of pity, the kind of honesty that is a gift when you're trying to build skill. Daniel's story didn't end at the classroom door. The persistence he learned carried into work, into relationships, into the small failures that make a life. He learned to show up for hard conversations, to practice patience like a muscle, and to repair mistakes quickly instead of covering them with pride when a job interview went poorly. He logged what he'd done wrong, practiced specific answers. and return 2 weeks later when a relationship frayed. He used the same method, small daily acts of attention rather than one big apology. There will always be critics. There will be people who label you, box you, and hand you other people's low expectations. Daniel's life answers that by showing what insistence looks like on a calendar, mornings kept. Pages read, mistakes corrected, persistence doesn't feel cinematic in the moment, it feels boring, repetitive, and frustrating. But repetition cements identity. Tomorrow's you is built by today's tiny choices. If you're listening to this and you feel boxed in by what others say about you, by tests, by grades, by past failure, take this as a practical plan. Not platitude. Start with the smallest possible commitment you can keep even on bad days. Make it measurable. Put it in a notebook. Track one metric. Ask one person for feedback. Do the minimum and then add a little. Repeat until the habit is invisible and your results are undeniable. The lesson Daniel left his town was simple and stubborn. Talent is a head start. Habit is a race. People often wait for some spark, inspiration, a lucky break, a sudden gift. But the real engine is the daily grind. The world rewards those who return consistently more than those who show up once with fanfare. Discipline outlasts charm. Preparation beats panic. So here's your final provocation. What is one tiny thing you can do tomorrow that your future self will thank you for? Not bold plans. Not life overhauls. One small step. Write it down. Train it like a promise. Keep the minimum even on your worst day. At the end of 30 days, read your notebook. The small deposits will have added up. This is iron will. Stand tall, start small, keep returning, prove them wrong, not with anger, but with steady work until the results speak louder than the doubts.